Poor man. Look, the poor man, I feel it. It's literally about that. All right, and we are back. Welcome back inside the show. It's 17 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock, and we're going to be talking about those food prices that you're seeing in the supermarket. The pandemic, or just people just gouging, and let's just find out from the Food Distributors Association President, Mr. Michael Schultz, who is joining us on Zoom. Good morning to you, Mr. Schultz.
Good morning, and good morning to Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you so much for joining us. So let us just get right into it. Why are the prices on the shelves so exorbitant? I mean, we're seeing some increases, some things 50%, 25%, maybe even 100% with some items.
Let me start off by giving you some basic information. This is the figures I'm going to quote compares the price of world commodities, basic commodities like corn, soybean, wheat, and plastic between the period September last year and June of this year. Soybean oil increased in price by 133%.
Wow.
And I'm talking about world prices, and this is not in Trinidad.
Right.
Corn went up 100%, is now starting to drop a little bit, but is still 57% up. Rice, 26%, starting to come down a little bit now. Sugar, 50% up. Wheat prices, 30% up. Over the period, remember, this is over the period September to June. Plastic resin, which is a big component in almost everything, including packaging, is 47% up and climbing. Yeah. This is caused really and truly by a combination of things. It's not one thing, but it's a combination. Primarily the pandemic and the fact that China has opened up early, and the demand for these commodities in China has jumped, and they are buying at inflated prices.
So apart from the pandemic, is that demand is driving the prices up?
Partially. The pandemic had a big effect on all. If you imagine that the US and Canada are the sources for Trinidad for those basics, wheat, corn, not sugar, but rice, soy, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The pandemic had the effect of basically shutting down the industry because everybody was confined to home. There was no activity. Therefore, harvest and crop decline. That combined with the increased demand from China is what causing all of this.
Right.
Well, now, there's several factors that are affecting us in Trinidad. Apart from the increase, and let me just touch on one thing. For example, we import finished product out of the States, Latin America, Turkey, all over the world really. Those manufacturers have also been affected. They pay in world prices for wheat, for example, but their plants have been shut down and running maybe at 50% capacity because they have had to socially distance. That is driving the price up at the manufacturer as well. So you have that compounding. Add to that now a worldwide shortage of containers. What happened during the pandemic is that China is one of the major suppliers to the world of all kinds of raw materials and finished products, particularly to the US. When they shipped out and they got to, let's say, for example, Houston, the port in Houston was shut down. The ships could not offload the containers, or if they offloaded the containers, they caused major congestion. Again, the containers didn't come off the port. This I'm talking about, this is happening worldwide, and this is not only one porter. It goes to the manufacturer. The manufacturer is shut down. They don't offload. It takes them 2-3 weeks before they can offload the raw material. That has caused containers to be stuck all over the world. As a matter of fact, right now, China has major ships. I'm talking about ships that are carrying in excess of 3,000 containers, just traveling the world, picking up empty containers to take it back into China.
Yeah.
That in itself has caused a a terrible spike in the cost of shipping. I'll give you an example so that make it easy to understand what that causes. We import aloe drink out of Korea. The cost of a container of aloe drink is 22,000 US. We were paying in September $3,000 US on that container.
Wow.
We now pay 8,000 US per container. In freight alone, that is taking up your price, if you convert it to TT dollars, $42,000 more on the, just because of the freight increase.
Yeah.
When you in Trinidad, we pay duty, 20% duty on the total, on the cost of the goods as well as the freight. So now you're paying 20% more on the increase of 6,000 US dollars.
Mm-hmm. So Mr. Schultz, let me see if I have an understanding of what we're dealing with here. So we're talking about a demand for goods. We're talking about a shortage of containers. We're talking about congestion on the ports. And we're also talking about increase in the cost of freight.
Yes.
Wow.
All of these are adding up.
And and as you said, these are the external factors. How low on the value chain are we, Trinidad and Tobago, you know, in terms of getting, let's say, a container or, you know, goods from, because you're talking about China to Houston, and then, so how low on the value chain are we?
Well, if you think of, let's take a normal supplier out of Brazil. This is a supplier of wafers, right? Mm-hmm. In August last year, we were told we are not supplying Trinidad any further. Now we buy in a container maybe every 2 months. So that is a big, to my company, that is a big blow. So you start to beg, you say, well, oh God, come on, man, we've been dealing with you 9 years and and so on, so on, so on, so on. They say, okay, the demand in Brazil is such that we don't need to export.
Wow. So
if you want the goods, they increase the price to us of the product in Brazil by 22%. You say, my God, we can't afford that. The consumer will not pay that increase. Eventually, we were out of stock for about 3 months. Demand was high. They eventually agreed to ship. So we paid 22% more. The freight out of Brazil went, because of the same worldwide situation with containers and shipping generally, the freight on a container went from $1,800 to $4,000. We are now ordering containers of wafers for Christmas and being quoted $7,000 US freight.
So do we have an
idea what is happening?
So, Mr. Schultz, it seems to me as if, based on what you're telling me, based on how low on the value chain we are, and in terms of our size and our capacity and what we can afford to import, that we really can't control this unless we decide to manufacture more. But
exactly.
When you talk about the situation in Brazil and the demand, I am thinking about our manufacturers here. So is it that our manufacturing association, that they should be doing better then? Because if there's a demand in Brazil for their products, I would want to think that it would translate here as well, where, you know, we have a demand for stuff and you should try or can supply it.
Right, that's very true. The situation the manufacturers face here, though, is to remember they are paying
they still need raw materials
world prices
for some things.
So prices to the manufacturers are going up. The same way, we are not growing anything really. I mean, we're growing cabbage and pimentos and that kind of thing. Those prices and that have not been affected, apart from the chemicals that the farmers have to use.
But we have seen those prices affected, though. That's the thing, is that we have seen increases in even those things that are grown here. Because the thing is, somebody might say, okay, that spray that I wanted to spray the cabbage, it took 3 months to come, plus I had to pay more for it as well.
Yeah, that is the problem. Now, as things will settle out, we are now going out to the freight companies or the shipping companies for quotations for freight up to December. We're not seeing a decrease at all. As a matter of fact, because demand is now growing in the US and Europe as they open up, demand for goods coming out of all the producing countries is up. So freight is continuing to grow until December. Normally, what happens is that like March, April, freight starts to come back down. We are hoping and we are actually projecting that by the end of the first quarter of next year, you're going to see a leveling out. I would say that the increases will not be as sharp as they are now. You should see a drop in freight and therefore a leveling out of prices.
But Mr. Schultz, I think for us, listen a little bit. I think for us, the problem with that, especially with price increases, and we haven't even gotten to the supermarket shelves. We were just talking about the process to get things into Trinidad and Tobago. I think the problem for us is that when we see those really sharp increases along the value chain, is that even when they normalize, they're going to normalize even if they come back down. When something went up by 300% or even 50%, is that it may come to 45% or even 30%. And so therefore, there's still a 30% increase in the goods that I have to buy. You know?
You are 100% correct. I do not see prices going back down to pre-COVID levels at all. I've been in this business for the longest while, and I have never seen prices from a manufacturer go up and then drop because they have excess capacity. I haven't seen that. So yes,
which
prices
is so
are
sad.
going to remain up.
Right. So
I would hasten to add, though, in all these conversations, we forget the power of the consumer. The consumer, the distributors are now faced with a situation like this. The cost of the goods have increased by 20%. Will the consumer or can the consumer pay that increase? And in many cases, is no. Therefore, the distributor will simply discontinue that product. Try to find something else that will fit the pocket of the consumer.
So then my question to you is, are we seeing a change in the brands of the things that we normally buy? Let's say cornflakes, where we normally have 20 different brands on the shelves. Are we seeing a change in the kind of brands that are available here in Trinidad and Tobago for certain goods?
Definitely. You've been doing your research. The distributor is faced with, let's take, you call cornflakes, for example. Kellogg's is a big brand. Kellogg's and Post will be more expensive. The consumer now has a choice. Do I buy Universal cereal or do I continue to buy Special K? There are some consumers who can afford Special K, but the majority of the consumers will now adapt and support Universal cereals. To me, I'm not a big cereal eater, but to me, the product is basically the same. And that is the choice the consumer will direct the supermarkets, and the supermarkets will direct the importers, the food distributors, as to what to bring in the future.
Well, let me ask you something, Mr.
That is
Schultz.
a big adjustment.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen cases where, because of the increases in the value chain, that let's use the Special K and the Universal as examples, that even though the Special K is coming from outside and the Universal is inside, that we'd see the price of the Universal go up just the same? Have we ever seen such situations?
Again, I wouldn't say just the same, because you're not paying the duty. The duty, the 20% uplift on the cost of the goods coming in is a big factor.
Yeah.
So what you would see, Universal prices will go up because they are buying corn on the world market, and the price of corn on the world market is way up.
Yeah.
So yes, their costs will increase.
But what are the opportunities? Tell me, you know, I think we need to do a SWOT analysis. What are the SWOT analysis? What are the opportunities that are there for us as manufacturers now, if we recognize through the pandemic that, listen, so much raw material, we depend on so much raw material to, you know, do what we have to do. What are the opportunities here for us to change how we're doing things?
Well, number one, you've seen a lot more things like frozen cassava, local root crops in the supermarkets now, and selling much better than it was before. I think we have to stop talking. First of all, we have to get together as a nation. We have to stop talking agriculture and really put some emphasis on agriculture. That we've been talking about since I'm a boy. The manufacturers have an opportunity now, especially in CARICOM and in Latin America, to start supplying, start going outside and start supplying. There is an opportunity, and once they take advantage of that and the markets on the outside, your production goes up and your cost drops. It will take a little adjusting, and it will take us, I would say, 6 months if we start getting serious now.
But do you think that the players in the market, Mr. Schultz, do you think the people, as you said, we need to, you know, look at CARICOM, look at Latin America and see how we can come together and treat with the situation? But do you think it will happen? Do you think we have recognized that as much as we're in a pandemic and as much as we have been affected in this kind of way, that here's an opportunity that we can grasp and kind of help ourselves, you know, not just for the short term, but the medium and long term?
Well, again, let me answer through my company. We have dropped at this stage about 4 foreign lines, but we have tried to replace them with local lines. People who, I would call it cottage industry, who don't have the ability to distribute, who don't have the contacts, who don't have the systems in place or the finance to take their product to the market. Yeah. We have taken on in the past 6 months 4 lines like that we are currently building. What that does is it gives the manufacturer economy of scale,
yes,
so that we can then keep the prices down. Again, there are opportunities. There are fellas in the economy that have money and want to invest, but right, you have to make you have to put things in place. You have to put incentives in place so that when I invest the money in a manufacturing plant, I am not hampered by all the red tape and the confusion, and you can't get this done because you can't get this permit and you can't do this.
So the ease of doing business, so the ease of doing business is still affecting the opportunities that we might have and could grasp.
Oh my God. You should try and start a company in this place. Oh my God. You go through hoops, you jump through hoops, you fill out 1 million forms and nothing happens.
But the Minister of Finance, though, is on, the Minister of Finance is on record in the last budget in October saying that this is something that the government is looking at, and that's why they're trying to digitize the economy so that the ease of doing business can be dealt with. Have we seen any kind of changes thus far?
Well, let me give you a challenge. Go up on the website for Export TT. Try and fill out that form. I spent trying to export a locally produced Morbi. I am not a computer wizard, but I spent at least 3 hours trying to get this form filled out. Eventually, I asked my daughter to come and do it because she is a lot more computerized than me. Well, she spent 1.5 hours and said, boy, this is impossible. I then called Export TT. Can I come in there and get somebody to help me fill out this form? Well, this is now 5 months ago. Nothing has happened.
Wow.
You speak to the people in Export TT and they are very helpful. They say, boy, sure, but you try to use that system, you're in trouble.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Mr. Schultz. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We will continue the conversation another time because obviously we still have to explore this. And I just really hope that prices will go down, as you say. We'll see some normalization, you know, as things get better with the pandemic. So thank you so much.
We will see normalization. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Bye-bye.
Michael Schultz there talking to us about, you know, just the prices along the value chain. It's everything, you know. Everything has improved, has increased. Everything.
Yeah, you know, and that's why I think
not everything. My salary did not increase.
Oh.
I think general, and not just me. I don't just mean it from my perspective. I mean in general. I don't think income has increased.
I packing up and coming out of the show because you see me, you know.
No, you see how you're wicked.
No.
I mean it in general.
The show because I ain't get no raise of pay and I don't want David Roberts to call me.
What?
I go.
How we reach there? I just mean in general, people's income have not increased. Let's take a break and come back with more. We'll try and bring Natalie back. I don't know what's going on with she. Natalie, come back here for me, please.
But what the France you want me to sing about?